Graduating university is meant to be a time of celebration, a launchpad into a bright future. But for many young Australians today, it's overshadowed by a mountain of debt. The cost of a degree has skyrocketed, leaving graduates starting their careers already financially behind. Add to this the rising cost of living, stagnant wages, and a housing market that seems increasingly out of reach, and it's no wonder many young people feel overwhelmed. The weight of this debt isn't just a personal burden, it's holding back our entire economy. Young Australians saddled with debt are delaying major life decisions like buying a home or starting a family. This means less money flowing into the economy and less opportunity for future generations. The question on everyone's mind is, can we fix this? The upcoming federal election has brought the issue of student debts to the forefront, with the Australian Labor Party promising relief if elected. But will their plan be enough to turn the tide? Australia's Higher Education Contribution Scheme, better known as HECS, was once hailed as a fair and equitable way to fund higher education. Graduates would contribute to the cost of their education once they were earning a decent wage. But the system that once promised opportunity is now a source of anxiety for many. The average HECS debt has ballooned in recent years, with some graduates owing tens of thousands of dollars before they even land their first real job. Repayment times have stretched out, with some graduates facing a decade or more of deductions from their paychecks. This is impacting their ability to save for a deposit, start a business, or simply make ends meet. The burden of HECS is not felt equally. Women, who generally earn less than men, are hit particularly hard, often facing a double whammy of lower wages and longer repayment periods. This economic disadvantage can have long-lasting consequences, impacting their financial security for years to come. The current system is simply not sustainable. It's time for a serious conversation about how we fund higher education and ensure that all Australians, regardless of their background, have a fair shot at a bright future. Recognising the growing pressure on graduates, the Australian Labor Party has unveiled a new plan to tackle HECS debt, hoping to alleviate the financial strain and offer hope to millions. Their approach is two-pronged, targeting both the overall debt burden and the repayment process itself. First, Labor proposes a one-off 20% reduction to all existing HECS debts. This means that if you owe $50,000, your debt would be automatically reduced to $40,000. This significant chunk of debt relief could be life-changing for many, freeing up much-needed cash flow for other essential expenses. Second, Labor plans to increase the minimum income threshold for HECS repayments from $54,000 to $67,000. This means graduates earning below the new threshold wouldn't have to make any repayments at all, giving them more financial breathing room in the crucial early years of their careers. This two-part plan aims to address both the immediate pressure of existing debt and the ongoing challenge of HECS repayments for future graduates. But is it enough to truly make a difference? Let's put this 20% debt reduction into perspective for the average Australian graduate. Imagine Sarah, a 25-year-old primary school teacher who graduated with a $30,000 HECS debt. Under Labor's plan, her debt would be slashed by $6,000, leaving her with a more manageable $24,000 to repay. This $6,000 could be a game changer for Sarah. It could go towards a much-needed car, a deposit on her first apartment, or simply provide some financial breathing room as she navigates the challenges of starting her career. The relief from this reduced debt burden could significantly improve her quality of life and allow her to focus on her passion for teaching. But the impact goes beyond individual graduates like Sarah. This 20% cut across the board would inject billions back into the economy. Graduates with more disposable income are more likely to spend, save, and invest, stimulating economic growth and creating a ripple effect that benefits everyone. While the 20% debt reduction offers immediate relief, the increased repayment threshold promises a more manageable future for graduates. Consider Mark, a recent engineering graduate earning $65,000 a year. Under the current system, he would be making HECS repayments. However, with Labour's proposed threshold of $67,000, he wouldn't have to contribute a cent towards his debt until his income surpasses this level. This means Mark would have an extra $1,000 or more annually remaining in his pocket. This could be the difference between struggling to make rent and comfortably covering his expenses. It could allow him to save for a house deposit, invest in his professional development, or simply enjoy a few more dinners out with friends. This breathing room is crucial for young Australians trying to establish themselves in a challenging economic climate. It allows them to focus on building their careers, saving for their futures, and contributing to the economy without the constant pressure of debt hanging over their heads. Labour's plan has ignited a fiery debate about fairness and economic responsibility. Supporters argue that it's a much-needed intervention to support a generation struggling under the weight of unfair debt. They point to the skyrocketing cost of education, stagnant wages, and the rising cost of living as evidence that young Australians need a helping hand. Critics, however, argue that a blanket debt reduction is unfair to those who chose different paths, such as entering the workforce directly or pursuing vocational training. They argue that it rewards graduates while offering nothing to those who didn't go to university. Some also question the economic prudence of such a large-scale debt write-off, expressing concern about the impact on the budget and the potential for inflation. The Greens, while supporting debt relief, argue that Labour's plan doesn't go far enough. They advocate for complete HECS debt cancellation and a return to free university education, arguing that education should be a right, not a privilege reserved for the wealthy. The debate is likely to rage on throughout the election campaign, with each side presenting their case and appealing to voters' sense of fairness and economic responsibility. Australia's HECS system is often compared to models in other developed nations, highlighting both its merits and shortcomings. While HECS removes upfront costs and allows graduates to pay back their education over time, the increasing debt burden raises questions about its long-term sustainability. Countries like Germany, Sweden, and Norway offer free or significantly subsidized university education, recognizing the societal benefits of an educated population. Graduates in these countries enter the workforce without the burden of significant debt, allowing them to contribute more readily to the economy. On the other hand, countries like the United States operate a loan-based system with higher interest rates, often leading to graduates facing crippling debt for decades. This model has been criticized for creating a cycle of debt that disproportionately affects low-income students and stifles social mobility. Australia's HECS system falls somewhere in between these two extremes. While it offers a more accessible pathway to higher education than the US model, the rising debt burden suggests a need for reform to ensure its long-term sustainability and fairness for future generations. The potential impact of Labour's HECS plan extends far beyond individual wallets. Easing the debt burden on graduates could have ripple effects across various sectors, influencing everything from the housing market to the outcome of the election. With more disposable income, graduates might be more likely to enter the housing market sooner, potentially boosting demand and stimulating the construction industry. This could lead to increased housing affordability for some, although it could also exacerbate affordability challenges in already competitive markets. Career choices could also be influenced. With less pressure to prioritise high-paying jobs solely to repay debt, graduates might feel empowered to pursue passions or take risks in fields they find personally fulfilling, potentially leading to a more diverse and innovative workforce. Politically, the HECS plan could be a game-changer for Labour, particularly among younger voters struggling with debt and housing affordability. By positioning themselves as the party offering tangible solutions to these pressing issues, Labour could sway a significant voting bloc and potentially tip the scales in their favour come election day. Labour's HECS Debt Reduction Plan has been met with both praise and scepticism. While it offers much-needed relief for graduates struggling with debt, some argue it's merely a band-aid solution that fails to address the underlying issues plaguing Australia's higher education system. Critics argue that without addressing the rising cost of university and tackling issues like course accessibility and affordability, future generations will continue to graduate with significant debt burdens, perpetuating the cycle of financial strain. They call for more comprehensive reforms, such as increased government funding for universities, a re-evaluation of course fees, and a greater focus on making tertiary education accessible to students from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Only time will tell whether Labour's plan will be enough to truly make a difference in the lives of graduates and the long-term health of the Australian economy. Whether it proves to be a temporary fix or a catalyst for more substantial reforms, one thing is clear: the conversation around affordable and accessible education is far from over.